Hey everyone, and welcome back to this channel. Today we're talking types of learners. There are four main types of learners. The first is visual, the second is auditory, the third is reading and writing, and the fourth is kinesthetic type of learner. Now these are all defined quite differently, and they really do determine the kind of style of revision and study and the way that you intake information. Now these different types of learners were identified in a research study in the early 90s where hundreds and thousands of hours of teaching and learning was observed, and they were able to pick out the different kind of learners, the different kind of teachers, and the different kind of sort of learning styles. Now it is so important to know what type of learner you are, and I think I really want to get into the depth of this over the next sort of 4 videos, whereby I'll be going through each of these different type of learners and sort of giving you the best learning techniques and some kind of tips for you if you're someone who falls under any of those one categories or a blend of those categories. I think I can probably attest to this, and you probably can agree with me, but growing up we're not usually told, and I wasn't told, that there are different types of learners. I didn't know that you could be a visual learner, or you could be someone who learns only from sort of writing things down and memorization. We just assume that everyone learns in the same way, and this is where the problem lies. And I really want to challenge that in the next couple of videos, where I want to kind of just show you that you have a specific learning style and one shoe never fits all. I'm sure you've watched videos on YouTube that, someone says, right, I got this grade, I got a first in my essay, and this is how I did it by memorizing all of this information. And you're there saying, well, I've tried that and I didn't get the same grade. Well, you might not learn in that way, and that's why it's so crucial for you to, understand yourself and understand what your learning style is. So in today's video, I'm going to be going through the visual learning style. Approximately 40% of us are visual learners. Quite a big chunk of us are visual learners. So it's important to understand sort of the things that you can apply when you're studying, and when you're reading, and when you're learning something, to help you with using that skill that you've clearly built up over the years, and that's clearly best to suit you. I post every Wednesday and Sunday, so if you want to see videos similar to this, then don't forget to press the subscribe button to see more from me. As I said, I'll be going through all 4 different types of learners, and so do keep following this channel if you want to maybe figure out how the other type of learners learn and whether you fit into one of those boxes. So to start off, I want to talk about the benefits of visual learning. There isn't one type of learner that's better than the other, and like I said, it's just a matter of identifying what suits you. So visual learners, they rely on color, shapes, and sort of visual aids to help them convey the information that they're trying to learn. So they typically might do things like doodling, they might draw mind maps, they prefer presentations and pictograms and graphs and things where they can actually see the information and see the data presented in front of them. Now, if you think about it, we communicate visually every single day. From the minute you're born, you're using visual communication. And in fact, it's one of the first senses that we are applying and using in life to learn from a really young age. It's actually, I consider, a bit of an innate learning style, because a newborn first learns visually. They first, look at their parents when they're born, and they learn the faces, and then they learn expressions and emotions, and they learn how to communicate through, the visual aids. And then they get older, and then again, they're still using their visual aids to be able to pick up signs and be able to communicate and let people know what they want before they can actually speak or before they can do anything else. And so it's almost natural to learn visually even as you get older, because that's something that we've always been doing and we're always constantly doing on a daily basis. There's actually some research that was done quite a long time ago that showed that people who learned visually and those that kind of generated their own sort of visual aids from the text were able to learn and kind of gain as much information as those that were writing and that learned from sort of written aids. So again, like I said, it's not a matter of one shoe is better than the other. It's not a matter of one learning style is better than another learning style. In fact, it's thought that someone who can translate written text into a visual aid is able to process information more deeply and take more meaning from the text itself. So that goes to show that actually you might have a bit of a step up if you are a visual learner. But ultimately, it's about what suits you, and that's what we're going to go through in this video. So I'm going to give you about, I think, maybe 5 or 6 different tips and strategies that you can try to implement in your learning if you think you might be a visual learner. So to start off, visual learners, I would recommend using a timetable, something that can really help you visualize your day. Now remember, as a visual learner, you're someone who wants to see what's going on, not just sort of know what's going on, know that you've got to study today or know that you've got to learn this this thing today, but actually visually see where that's going to fit into your day. So try to have some sort of schedule. Try to kind of have a routine in place. Remember to timetable breaks in. Remember to use different study techniques, because this can really help you with sort of trying to like diversify the way that you learn and kind of like the way that you're inputting information. And also try to think about getting rid of distraction, because you are a visual learner, so all the information that's coming in from the different sources around you is going to be stimulating. So try your best to sort of just have that one thing that you're looking at and remove all the other distractions away from you. So that could be your phone, that could be even your laptop. If you can just have a textbook or just have whatever it is that you're learning in front of you, that is the best way to start the day. The second technique is color coding or symbol coding. Now, as a visual learner, you're someone who really relies on signs and input and continual and consistency when it comes to the way your work is presented. So have some sort of system. So maybe your maths work, if you're like a younger student, your maths can be all blue, highlighted just in blue, or maybe a subtopic can be highlighted just in yellow, or maybe you use exclamation marks or a specific symbol to show or denote a specific point. So let's say, I don't know, you're reading a research paper. If you're a university or you're a PhD student, you're reading a research paper. Anywhere that it's, for example, a limitation, you might want to put an asterisk there. And so you know that visually, wherever you see that asterisk, that means it's a limitation. Kind of having a code that you understand, and that when you're flicking through your work, you can just kind of visually like pinpoint that and identify what they mean really quickly. I think I'm a visual learner to some extent. I'm definitely a blend, but I do think I'm more a visual learner. So this really works with me, having sort of coding systems in place where I know what I mean, but it really helps when going through work later on. The third is mind mapping, and mind maps are something that we do, from a really young age. They help some people, they don't help others. I find them semi-useful depending on the topic, but mind maps are really useful for a visual learner. So what you do with a mind map is you'll take a bit of text and you'll convert that into an information bubble. So what you'll do is you'll maybe start with the main topic, the concept in the middle, and then you might branch out with subtopic, and then you might branch out with like further ideas. And so what you're doing there is you're visualizing this process, you're visualizing the understanding of this specific topic, as opposed to it just being a paragraph of text. One thing to remember though is to make sure that you've got enough white space when it comes to your mind maps. I've seen mind maps where it's just like a bunch of writing and a bunch of colors and information, and I mean, if that works for you, go for it. But I think as a visual learner, you are stimulated by what's around you and the information that's around you, and so it's important to have white space as sort of like areas of break and areas of calm. It becomes quite difficult to read information when they're all crammed together, which is why a visual learner doesn't do well with like paragraphs of text. And so just converting that to a massive mind map on a sheet of paper is also not that useful. So do make sure you have enough sort of space around the page, so you kind of have that balance of text and no text. The next technique is to ask for a demonstration or to demonstrate it. So I'm thinking, for example, here, something to do with science or biology. You're learning about, I don't know, the microscope or particular chemical reaction or particular concept in chemistry. Instead of just learning that when you mix this with that, it turns blue, and just kind of memorizing that on paper, if you were to visually see that being done, that is, as a visual learner, a lot more useful to you than reading. That isn't that useful unless you've seen it in person. Now, it can be quite difficult to get a visual for every single thing, because a lot of the time your teacher will just say no. It's just obviously not possible when it comes to time to demonstrate every single thing, which is why YouTube exists and which is why the internet exists. What you can do is simply just search for the concept and search for demonstration of this thing, and you can actually see how it works in person. One thing that I like to do, for example, is when I was learning about the electron microscope, and this was during my PhD, I found it quite hard to just read the text and understand, okay, the electron beam goes through here and then it bounces off here and then it goes into here, and then like it's quite abstract. A lot of these concepts are really abstract. It really helped to visualize it, and so I watched a video where, even though it was just animated, but it showed me the path that beam took, which allowed me to then visualize my specimen through the lens. That now is like solidified in my brain, and I can replay that, and actually feels like cheating in the exam, because it's like I can see what that looks like as if like it's being showed to me. So I find visual demonstrations really, really useful, and I definitely recommend that if you think you're a visual learner, try to scope out demonstrations of different concepts if you find that useful. And the last technique I have is to request handouts handouts or to try to print out the information on paper so you can visually see it whilst it's being spoken. I guess this is an interesting one because this combines a couple of different learning styles. Let's imagine you've got a lecture all online now. So you're sitting down in a lecture, well, an online lecture, you're being spoken to, so you've got auditory information coming in, which is a different learning style altogether. You're then watching the presentation, so you're visually learning, and then you're also having to like write and scribble things down. So you're kind of combining 3 different learning styles all at the same time, which is challenging for anyone, let alone someone who is just a visual learner. So one thing that you can do is having the notes and kind of pre-looking at the notes before. So what that does is you've looked at the notes, you know what's coming, you've got that sort of visual in your head, you know what's coming. So when you're being spoken to, you know, you have to be somewhat adaptive. And so when you're being spoken to, you're not using your visual that much because, you know, you've kind of looked at it already. You're just using your audio. So you're listening, and you're listening for kind of what you've already read. So it's using, you've already used that visual learning style when you looked at it for the first time, and then now you're then going to apply the auditory learning style to then scribble down notes that you think could be useful based on what you know is coming. I find it really tough to kind of do all 3 at the same time and to learn. And so one of the biggest techniques that I learned during university, my undergrad, was to look at the notes beforehand. I can't tell you how it transformed my learning. Like the way that I took in information when I knew what was coming was on a different level to when you're like, oh, what's this? Like it's completely different. So I definitely recommend if you're a visual learner, and to be honest, no matter what kind of learner you are, I definitely think looking at your notes beforehand, knowing what's coming, kind of thinking about some questions that you might want to ask and some parts that you think, you know, this is quite tricky, I need to focus at this time, means that you're able to kind of zone out for some parts if you know you're okay with it, zone back in for other parts, and it kind of keeps you balanced for the 2 hours or the 1 hour that the lecture is. And it's all virtual now, so it's already so hard to keep up. So definitely thinking about some sort of like pre-look at the notes or pre-looking at what's coming is really useful. So those are just some techniques that you can use, and those are techniques that I applied when I was learning things, and I still really apply them to this day when it comes to information overload and kind of trying to take in some information. Like I said, I think I'm a blend of visual and I think probably written. I definitely don't learn from listening, like it just goes in one and out the other. Whereas like my husband, for example, he can listen to something and he can recall it and will say exactly what you said after just listening. So I find it fascinating. Like I can't recall after just listening. You know, it's really important to understand what learner you are. Let me know what kind of learner you are. Do you know if you're a visual learner, or do you know if you're another kind of learner? And if you are a visual learner and you have any other tips that you want to provide, then do let us know. What else do you use? I'm sure that there's other things that you can apply to be able to kind of boost your visual learning technique. And like I said, I will be following this video up, probably one video a week on the other 4 learning styles, as the other 3 learning styles as well. But like I said, don't forget to follow me here on YouTube and on my Instagram and my social media as well. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.